Hey, looks like everything is working fine. So I hope that you are listening to me
Hey, looks
okay.
like everything is working fine. So I hope that.
Yeah, everything is about the sound, the music is not too loud. Maybe at the moment I'm not sure which should be the right volume I have to set for the music. So if the music is too loud or my voice is too loud or the sound is doesn't work well, please let me know. Send your comments. Um, Hello and welcome back to my today's stream. Today, if I have post on the on social media, uh, today I'm gonna try to wrap up to finalize this project, trying to set the file for 3D printing. Also, we are gonna make some testing and we are gonna talk about the weight. So let's check. I want to check how weight is this, uh, and I'm gonna try to optimize the weight. So I'm gonna make it hollow inside. Let's see, and I want to show you which is my process to make the organic modeling hollow inside for weight saving. But this is, you know that this is a very important point when we are making jewelry designs, and I'm gonna show you my process, the normal process that I follow when I when I made an organic design like this one. Then most of the clients wants the design looks good, looks nice, but not too heavy. You know, when we are talking about jewelry, even if we are gonna cast the piece in gold, so the weight is very important. So I'm gonna show you my process about this point. And once we got it ready, completely ready for printing, completely hollow inside with nice weights. In this case, maybe you're gonna try to to set the weight for silver, or let's see, because it is a big piece. If we are have in mind to make it in gold, maybe I don't know how big it is. Maybe I think that we decide on previous streams. I set it up to 30 millimeters, maybe from left to right. I'm gonna check it out now. Let's see. But maybe this could be a good design for a medal, for not for a coin, or maybe for a coin, but with a big coin, because maybe it's too big for a standard coin. Or depends. Or for putting on a signet ring, or I don't know, for many purposes, or even for make a big piece, not for 3D printing, or maybe for CNC carving in good or in stone. Maybe we can use it for that as well. And once the design will be ready for 3D printings, the weight is okay, I'm gonna send it to Keyshot, and we are gonna start talking about the rendering process. So I have been making some testings on the piece, trying to set up some silver material with some realistic finishing or different finishings. But I'm going to show you my process about how to set up the materials inside of Keyshot. But once we are inside of Keyshot, you can ask, you can leave your comments, and if you are looking for a specific finishing, or you would like to ask me something about the light, or something about this, how to set the scene, or whatever. So I'm gonna try to make a cool render. So for posting it lately on social medias, on and but you have something in mind that you would like to ask me about Keyshot. So today is the day to talk about Keyshot, because we are gonna be more in Keyshot than more than in ZBrush. Okay, so let's go. Let's go. Where's my pen? Here. This is my pen. Everything is ready. The camera is maybe there. Okay. So we left this design on the previous session. Almost finished it. I spent some time uh, detailing the model a little bit more, or adding the items which were missed on the previous in the previous session, as the arrow here. And we have, for example, we have in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 subtools. The design is composed by 7 subtools. This subtool is the finished piece. So this is just for for testing. I made it for testing, but I'm gonna repeat all the process today to show you how to merge, how to blend, or how to put all the subtools together, and I'm gonna decimate the model. I'm gonna make it hollow, as I said before. So I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna delete this subtool. I don't want to keep this here. So we have the arrow. We have, this is the only the body itself. We were making the Boolean operation on the previous session, where I was blending the arms or the legs to keep all of the necessary subtools as a one single piece. You can see here how it looks like. You can see here the polygroups are still there. So we were making the leg as a single subtool, the arm, the leg, the tail, the body. That's the reason why it has different colors, and it still has the original poly count. It is about reaching 1.5 million almost. It's going to be necessary to decimate, of course, to be able to send it to any printer. Hi there, and this is the fit. This is the this is a one subtool that I put it here. You know, you can see here for, I'm gonna hide, to fill in this gap between the body and on the arm. And this is the base. This is the base. So this is how weird everything looks like when we are making reliefs. So everything is working fine in the front view, but when we are watching the model from the sides, looks very weird. You can see here the face, how strange it is. So, but doesn't matter. I use a cube, the full line extruded cube, to put it on the back, to make the final cut on the back, to make it flat on the back, completely flat, because as it is a relief. I'm gonna, so that's the reason why I have this icon, the subtractive icon, active. So when I turn on my light Boolean button, I can see the eye should be turned on, so I can see how the model looks like as a final relief. You can see, and I'm gonna take the measure now. To take measurements, I normally use the transpose line. You can use this button, or you can use the Y from the keyboard. So this is from left to right. That's more or less. Now we have 32.5632 units. Unit means millimeters inside of ZBrush. You don't change, you don't decide that you would like to work with other units. See, the default units inside of ZBrush, are millimeters. But if we would like to take any of the measurement from a single subtool, in this case the biggest subtool is the body. I already have here my plugins. You can see it's about 30.93 millimeters if I now select the units, millimeters, now from left to right with the same length of the transpose line, now we can read here the millimeters. So as I said before, around 32 millimeters wide from left to right. So I used to work with caliper. Yeah, it's not very big. It's something like this big. Small, maybe being optimistic, maybe we can try to make it in goal or to try to check how it works in goal, how weight it is. So let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna correct the Boolean. So I'm gonna add this all the icons till the end. This is the negative Boolean subtraction. With this button turn it on. If I go to Boolean, make Boolean mesh. One thing first before do this, and it's very important. If I'm gonna click here, I'm gonna check the topology of the cube. You can see the cube. Okay, I already have subdivisions with the cube. If I go here, for example, at the lowest subdivision, I have 17,000 polygons. It's a small, quite a small amount of polygons. On its highest subdivision level, I have quarter of a million, so 280,000 polygons, more or less. So it's very important, and you are going to use a cube or a primitive on the back to cut out part of the model. In this case, when I work relief, it's very important. I'm going to show you why after. Is because you know, when we are making different booleans, when we are making boolean with different meshes, I'm gonna open my Epic Pen to start drawing some explanations. Oops, sorry, I'm looking for something. Okay. So when you are making different booleans, for example, you have different things. You're gonna create something, and each mesh, each object has its own topology, and in some cases you can even mix triangles with quads, or the boolean almost works on every cases. So if I paint this in yellow, so that means that we are gonna get something. For example, if we are gonna subtract this from this and this from this, we are gonna get something like this. This means that this part will take the same topology like the original mesh, and this part will take the original topology from the original mesh. From So in this case, when we are making a relief, we are gonna cut the back side of the model. It's very important to have not a special topology, but at least enough polygons to do what I'm gonna do afterwards. So in this case, when I'm saying enough polygons, I'm not saying a big amount of polygons. You can see here I have less than half of a million, quarter of a million even. But this is enough. This is enough. So, but that's the reason why I before click this, start making the final Boolean mesh, I checked this topology first. I don't care about and also worried about this face. I'm gonna choose the transparent. I'm gonna be worried about the topology of this face, because this face, the lion is gonna take the same topology than this face. This I don't care about this, the rest. So half of this poly count, it's enough. So let's click and make a Boolean mesh now. Let's wait. Okay, it's ready, it's done. You know, here we have the final operation, and I'm gonna turn off my polyframe. I'm gonna turn off the line, and here you can see what I was saying before. You can see this is the original topology from the cube, and this is the original topology from the lion, which it was a dynamis, and we have to, you can see here the differences between. And now before I start making anything, because the next step for me, or well, the next step is going to be the decimation. But before I start decimating the mesh and leave it ready for the hollowing process, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna extrude this face. Why I'm gonna extrude this face? Because I'm gonna do something like this. I need to extrude this part. Keep in mind that we are talking about reliefs, right? This is a technical. Most of the cases, maybe 95 of the cases, useful for when you are making reliefs. So I'm gonna extrude this face, all this face. I'm gonna grab this polygroup and I'm gonna push it back to start creating this, because when we're gonna make it hollow, we're gonna make it hollow something like this. This is the offset between the external wall and the internal wall, and one is hollow. What I'm gonna do after it's gonna cut out, I'm gonna remove this part. I'm gonna make the original cut and I'm gonna remove all of this. What I'm gonna correct, I'm gonna get a completely hollow piece inside with the same flat cut on the back, and I think this is going to be better to see it in action instead, because I'm not sure if I am explaining myself very well about the techniques. I'm trying to do my best, but I think it's not very clear. So okay, let's go. So what I do is, as before I start making any decimation, because it's very important to make this step now to try to don't lose the polygroups. So do this before decimate anything. So I'm gonna Control Shift. I select this, the back side, the flat face. And again, I'm gonna show you first what is wrong, or for me, what is wrong for me, okay, because it's just under all of my criteria, where my way of working is I'm not saying that this is the correct way to do the things. This is only my way to do it. So I'm gonna make a mask, Control click on the canvas, Control Shift and click. Now everything is visible now. Control click to invert the mask. And now if I do this to make the extrusion, this is what happens. You can see you start creating this artifacts, this some jaggy edges on imperfections on the border, and that's the reason why it's very important to do something before do this. I just make this to show you why it doesn't work. So I'm gonna undo it, Control drag, repeat it again, same process, same step as before. Control Shift, click, and I'm going to use a little button that I have here, H loop, and this little button that I have here, the crisp button. Where is the crisp button? The crisp button is inside of the H loop, and here you will find the crisp button. The crisp button is, I'm gonna create an H loop. An H loop, that means that I'm gonna put a frontier or a border on the surrounding the open mesh like this. And the differences between crisp and no crisp is, for example, without the H loop, without the crisp, you're gonna create a loop like this, and with the crisp, maybe ZBrush is gonna create a crisp like this, thinner than the default one. As trying to get more clean edge, I prefer to turn this on. So turn the crisp on and now create the edge loop. Now we already have the edge loop. I'm gonna show you. This is the needs to have we need to make a very big. You can see where is the loop. It's so thin that it's almost invisible at some point. Can I do it? If I now click on the edge loop without the crisp button, you can see now the differences. That's the reason why I normally make this. This is due to the reason why I am getting this some kind of weird or strange edge loop on the border is because the difference between the different topologies that we have. That's the reason why the crisp button only always works on most of the cases. So Control Shift, turn this on, edge loop. Control Shift, make it everything visible again, and now I'm gonna isolate this, make the mask invert, and I'm gonna create this. And this is how it looks like. Remember that before we were getting very dirty edges here, artifacts, and now we are getting a completely clean extrusion. That's the reason why it's important to use the crisp button. So I think that like this should be enough. I mean that maybe it's not necessary to make the extrusion too big. So maybe like this. And now it's time for decimation. I already have here on my custom interface the decimate the presets. Maybe a good decimation for this model could be maybe 250K. Let's see. Let's click here. Let's wait for the decimation process. So we are going to go from 1,007,061 million polygons to 250K of 50,000 polygons. And now it starts my hollowing process. Now you can see this is you can see here, this is the original decimated mesh. Everything is, I think, looks fine. Maybe before send it to decimation, I'm gonna try to blend a little bit more this transition between these two areas with the Sculptors Pro and smooth bodies. I'm gonna try to blend a little bit more to get a better transition between these borders. In this case, the smooth valleys is very important to use because you are not going to destroy, or you are not gonna smooth unwanted part of the model. Maybe like this. Maybe I'm gonna smooth this little gap as well. Here and here. You can see here there's a tiny little gap here. I'm gonna smooth this out to fill in with the smooth valleys option. Let's see here, the same here. You can see it's like it works like a filling tool. We are able to fill in gaps, capes, and some imperfections. Maybe I'm gonna leave this to keep well defined the transition between the two arms. The main, I'm gonna leave the main as it is. Okay. Maybe here I'm gonna check out this. Let me here. I'm gonna blend this a little bit. Mhm. Okay. So I think it's good enough. Maybe I'm gonna blend a little bit more this here. Hmm. Okay. So we have a little bit more polygons than before because when we are using a Sculptris, we are using a live tessellation. So that means that we are creating polygons at the same time that we are sculpting. So we are adding polygons. So that's the reason why we have more polygons now. Let's come back to the original value. Clicking to from the 250k. Okay, it's okay. And one thing that this is very important. You need to for 3D printing in general and for hollowing, you need to be sure that the model is composed of by only one surface. So you know when you are making Boolean between different parts, maybe you can get little pieces of mesh or little polygons there floating inside of the model, and as they are inside, you don't able to see it. But when you are gonna try to make it hollow, could be problematic. So a fast way to check this, if I'm gonna turn on my polyframe, remove the line. This is here you have this button here, auto groups. So you can find it inside of polygroups, auto groups here, and that means that for any reason you have a model like this and you have little pieces of geometry inside, ZBrush will apply a single polygon to each piece of geometry. So if we are looking for get rid of the internal uh, pieces or internal uh, trash inside of the model, this is a very good way to recognize if there is something inside of the model like this. So now what I do is Control Shift, click, and Control Shift and invert. If happens this, you can see here, I am watching here, this is, you can see it here. This is a little piece of geometry floating inside. So what you need to do is Control Shift, invert. Sometimes they are visible, so you notice that there is something on the canvas, but in many cases the polygons are so tiny that it is almost impossible to see them. So I'm gonna invert, and now I'm gonna delete hidden. So that's the way to get rid of all the floating trash inside of the model. And just for double checking, what I do is close holes to try to keep the mesh watertight. And now I think it's gonna be ready for send it for hollowing. I This is the only tool that I use. This is the only external tool that I use, different than ZBrush. So I mean that the hollowing process, I don't make the hollow. I don't hollow the parts inside of ZBrush. I use an external software. The software that I use, it's MeshMixer. Maybe some of you already know it. If not, this is a free to use software. I'm gonna export it before. I'm gonna export it in OBJ. This is Lion Relief. Maybe this is going to be the final. And now import. And this is what I get here. Let's go to edit, hollow. This is the hollow, the offset that the MeshMixer makes by default. It means that the offset between the external wall and the internal wall, the distance between the two surfaces, now it's 2 millimeters. As we are gonna try to optimize the weight as much as we can, maybe most of the customers, when they are requesting to me silver pieces, well, depending on the design, but in most of the cases, maybe 1 millimeter or maybe even more, or depending on if it's going to be necessary any stone setting on the surface, maybe we can reach 1.2 millimeters or even 1.5 millimeters. But if we are thinking about to start manufacturing or casting the piece in gold, everything changes. So we should be start thinking about 0.8 millimeter or even less. Maybe we can, in some cases, customers request to me to leave the walls at 0.6 millimeter thick. Maybe it's too thin, but I don't know. Maybe they are getting good results on casting. But let's see, just for an example, this case, let's say 0.8 millimeter. We try, and the setting that I normally set adjust are solid accuracy. The solid accuracy is the how accurate should be the offset between the external face and the internal face. So that means, for example, we have some things like this. If we leave, for example, you can see now that the accuracy now is at 65. This is a very low value. That means that maybe the offset is going to be something more or less like this. So the software now is don't worry about these forms or these volumes. But if we increase this value, normally I put it here, not at the maximum or even here. This is the half, maybe a value between the half and the maximum. In most of the cases works fine. That means that the software is gonna try to curve or to try to make a more accurate offset between the external and the internal wall. So this is a very important setting to keep in to con to control or to think about it. And the other setting that I check is the mesh density. The mesh density is just if we are talking about the subdivision levels. That's is the mesh that the software is creating inside of the object. How big the polygons are. Of course, if we are requesting an accurate offset, will be better to get a high density instead of a low density mesh. So, conclusion, I set this to, as I said before, more or less here, and I push this up till here more or less. And update the hollow with the new values: 0.8 millimeters, more accuracy and more mesh density. So this is a very effective software. So don't take too much time to calculate the final result. But maybe I set the accuracy too high. Of course, if you are requesting more accuracy or more density, the time calculation it's much higher than leaving the settings than they are as default. So it's just a matter of time, so waiting time. So you can see here now the result is completely different. We have a more accurate offset, more precise, and the lion is now hollow inside with 0.8 millimeter walls. So, and it's ready. I don't take any extra steps here inside of MeshMixer. Next step and last is accept and export it again with overwriting the the previous file. In some cases, MeshMixer is trying to tell you that you are not exporting a watertight or closed or non-manifold object. We don't care about this because uh, we are gonna fix this inside of ZBrush. So because MeshMixer is recognizing that you are gonna exporting two elements, so the external mesh and the internal body of the offset. So that's the reason why it hasn't sent for it. If you are thinking about to print this, but don't care about this message. So let's click on continue, and let's wait a little bit more, and it's ready. Let's come back to ZBrush, and what I do now is import it back inside of ZBrush. Import Lion, and now we have this. And what I do now, what I'm gonna show you first, what we did on MeshMixer before. I'm gonna pen, or well, I'm gonna use the same cube. I used to use the same cube because trying to get the cut at the same point than before, that we decided before. So let's go here, a pen, let's click the cube. If we turn this on, this is what we get. This is what we get. This is hollow inside, and we have a problem here. No, it's not really a problem. It could be a problem here. This means that here there isn't enough space between the hollow body and the back cut. So that's the reason why I like to do this. From selecting the original, I use the split two parts. Just to getting, I'm gonna turn this on. Just to getting, this is the original mesh, the model itself, and this is the offset, the internal body. So one extra step it's necessary to take here is to flip the mesh, because it's like we are watching the mesh from the inside. That's the reason why we're watching the mesh like this. This looks like in some part it vanishes. So that's the reason why it's like we are watching the mesh from the inside. We are only watching the one face of the mesh. So it's necessary to flip it. So click on flip. This is what we get. And one thing that I like is to fix the internal part. For example, I don't like this part. I'm gonna make the brush size bigger. With the Sculptors Pro active, I'm gonna start getting. In this case, smooth peaks will works better. Like this. I'm gonna remove this. Gonna make the brush a little bit smaller. Like this. And let's see now. Again, this should be all the eyes visible. And now this part should be negative. This is what we are watching. This means that the distance between this wall, this point, the front part, and the back is smaller than 0.8 millimeter. So maybe we are getting here in the danger zone, because if we are start getting close to 0.6 millimeters and below, we are gonna have problems in printing and in casting. So maybe it's the reason why maybe I can let's see, what could I do for fix this? Maybe, of course, I can push back a little bit the cube. Not too much, not only a little bit. Only a little bit, and maybe in this part should be thicker. And what I do is with the small valleys, try to start getting this part a little bit thicker. or maybe with the clay fill. Let's see, maybe we need more thickness here. You can see that we are adding thickness in these areas. Adding more material here, but remember that I am adding more material from to the internal offset. You can see now this is too much. This is going to be a problematic part. Maybe if let's see if I remove this. I'm gonna try to remove. I'm gonna try to curve this here and remove this part. Maybe we need to remove more. Yes, almost. I'm gonna fill in this part a little bit too. Maybe now it's going to be enough. Okay. Ok, Pablo, espero que te guste. Hola, Isabel, hi. Okay, maybe I'm gonna check this out, this thickness here, but I think this is going to be okay. So let's correct a Boolean to check out this different thicknesses here. I'm gonna try to push back this a little bit to don't make it too thin. Like this. Let's make it Boolean now. Let's see. Click on double. Yeah, I think that we are gonna get enough thickness there. But maybe it's going to be necessary because I am worried about the thickness, about this point and this point. Maybe here we are below 1.8 millimeter because here we have 0.8 millimeter here. Now you can see, you can watch it here clearly that we are below 0.8 millimeter. So let's come back to the original here, and maybe in this part should be necessary to push out a little bit. And maybe it's going to be enough. Okay, so to don't be wasting too much time here, so let's correct now. This is going to be the final, this one. And now we can check out the weight. You know that, I think you already know that ZBrush has this very useful plugin for jewelers, is Kitco Metal Quotes, where just clicking here we can read the different weights in different metals. Maybe you can see in silver we are under 4 grams, or 18 Ks. Maybe we are getting, I think, some realistic weights. Maybe we are under 6 grams of gold, and we are under 4 grams of silver. It should be fine. Remember that we were hollowing the piece in 0.8 millimeters. Maybe if in gold, maybe it's still too much. Maybe we can go till 0.6 millimeters if necessary, but I think it's gonna be okay. So, and this is the final process with the MeshMixer workflow. I send the model to MeshMixer, make the offset inside of MeshMixer, then send it back to ZBrush, and inside of ZBrush I split the two meshes, the external uh, the external mesh. This is the original model, and the internal mesh, who is the internal offset, the real hollow, the negative body. So, and inside of ZBrush I start making booleans between them, and if we need to fix some parts of the internal body, we can fix it very easily with the Sculpting Pro uh, feature. So we are able to get rid of the part that we don't like, or we can adjust on some areas, as I did, the thickness, because we think that it's going to be too thin or it's going to be too thick. We can, so that's the reason why I like to split the two bodies and work with them as an individual subtools. So start playing with the two elements as individual parts, like this. For example, about this, if we decide, for example, because we are thinking about start molding, to start making molds of this, and maybe we can think that this is going to be a little bit critical, this part of the mold, because here we have a little sharp fold here. It's going to be problematic, and we would like to get rid of this part, to starting it end here and get rid of this hollow part here. So very easy to create, as I said before, selecting the internal body, and then the smooth peaks, Sculpting Pro, and goodbye. So we can start controlling the how much we want to remove from the inside. So that's the reason why I have the two elements separated as an individual subtool. And for this Sculpting Pro, this is one of the features that I use the most for when I use Sculpting Pro, is to start destroying or removing unwanted part of the internal bodies when I make the pieces hollow inside. This is one thing that I love, is the ability of Sculpting Pro to destroy or to get rid the unwanted parts. Okay, so let's go to Keyshot. Now, for now, if you have any questions, you can leave your comments here on the chat, on the live chat, or you can leave the comments after the streaming on the comments you want. What's in here? Okay. To send it to Keyshot, I prefer to use the original The original model. The original model, I mean the model with more polygons, with the original topology, or with the ZBrush topologies. In this case, this. So I'm gonna create a new Boolean, or maybe I can select this. No, let's create a new one. Make the new Boolean for this. Remember that the original model had around 1.5 million. It's not too much for Keyshot for rendering, but we are gonna get better quality on the surface. Would you send a decimated mesh? Maybe when we are gonna try to render metal polished surfaces, maybe we can have problems with the oops, with the I made something wrong here with the surfaces above, because about the topology, about the triangles on the topology. That's the reason why when to create the renders, I prefer to send more dense meshes. Let's create it again. Okay, maybe it's a bit lazy today. Okay, so this is you can see here it's about 1.5 million. It's not going too much for Keyshot, so I'm gonna save the project and let's start the rendering process. Okay, one last thing. If we decide this is going to be the latest, this is going to be the right, this is going to be the printing file. So let's make the final boolean. So we are happy with this. This is this one. No, it's not this one. It's this one. It's the 315,000 polygons is not too much for the printing applications. But we zoom in, you can see that the polygons, the detail is still there. Maybe we can optimize a little bit more the file. Instead of more than 300,000 polygons, maybe we can try 150,000 polygons and see how it looks like with less polygons. As less polygons you send to the printing software, it will be better. So you can see now the differences between 300,000 and 150,000. The differences are the same, and even trying to think about the final printing size, we don't. So is it good enough? So the finalist step, we can export it. This is going to be the final. As you can see, I can export it again in OBJ. This is just for my personal taste test, because for the mesh checking I use the free version of NetFab. Let's see how it looks like, the mesh, and let's check some thicknesses as well. Later, I'm gonna import it. Import. Okay, the mesh is good enough. No warnings here, but I'm gonna check the thicknesses. I'm gonna check the ruler. I'm gonna select the ruler. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna check the mesh, the thickness here. You can see 0.9 millimeters. Maybe here is too thick. At some points, maybe it's too thick, but the weight is still okay, so I don't care about this. 0.7, 0.8, 0.8, 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. The rest is perfect. 0.8, 0.95 here, maybe 0.8, 0.85. But and as an average, let's see what happens here. We have on the nose 1 millimeter, 0.8 millimeters. Yeah, I think You can see it's good enough. The weight is okay. All the thicknesses are okay in terms of the casting process on the printing process should be fine. Okay, so ready. So when everything is ready, export a part as the final STL for the 3D printing or for the final product for sell to the customer, and that's it. Okay, now yes, let's go to Keyshot. Let's go to Keyshot. I use the Keyshot for ZBrush version, and with the Keyshot to ZBrush bridge. That means that the ZBrush and Keyshot are connected together. So if I turn this on, going to render, external render, turn this on, and just clicking the BBR button, the internal rendering process. So we are gonna send the model with as it is now at the moment to directly to Keyshot. So let's click here. I'm still using the version 9 of Keyshot. I need to upgrade to the 10, but at the moment I think I'm happy with the 10 with the 9 version. As we are gonna talk today more about the materials, I don't care about the image resolution or image. Let's say we're using these presets. Let's say if I go to, this is more standard landscape, yeah, something like this. So one thing that I see here, it looks like that the lion looks huge inside of the scene. To fix this, you need to check out how big the environment is. So you go to environment. Here on the side of settings, you can increase the size. You can see that the environment was a little bit small. And one very important thing to set before start making anything is to check out the scene measurements. So go into edit, set the scene units, and as we're gonna render a jewelry piece on a small piece, I used to select centimeter. So okay, change the scene units may affect existing texture and label mapping. This is the reason. This is the reason why it's very important to set this. Start making anything about the material setting or start making rendering anything. Just to select the units first to avoid mapping issues or any issues to set the scene units before applying labels and texture. Okay, got it. So this is what we get. So another thing that I do is when I and kind of and even you can see now it's even smaller. Let's say bigger like this. One thing that I normally do, I always add, depending on the kind of model, and it's very important, is to add a floor to the scene or a background geometry. You can do this, go into geometry, add geometry, you can add the ground plane here, or this is new with the 9 version. Here inside of the library menu, you can go to models, and here you have some different models. In this case, I'm gonna use the backdrop ramp. This is the one that I use the most. In some cases I use the backdrop round, but I like to use the backdrop ramp. Double clicking. So Keyshot is gonna add this. If I zoom out with now I am using the mouse with the wheel. The first thing that we notice is we need to turn the model. So let's go to the scene, going here, position. Let's say, okay, let's do it manually first go right click, move model, and let's start rotating this. So this is 180 degrees and this should be 0. Should be 0. Maybe now the backdrop RAM is too big. Right click, move part, check the scale box and with let's say something like this. I'm gonna extrude a little bit more to make it taller like this and snap to ground. Let's make it a little bit wider with this. And now I'm gonna select this part, move part, and I'm gonna put it on place. Let's say I'm gonna put this here. Let's put it here. A little bit up, a little bit to the left, like this. Okay, now as you see, the first steps to take is to set up the scene, and now select the camera angle that we are gonna choose. We are gonna select for the rendering. So I'm gonna zoom in like this, put it on the center. Like this, like this, like this. You can control this inside of the camera settings. You can work with the distance, with the azimuth. I don't know how to pronounce this. Azimuth, inclination, and twist, 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 like this. And let's select this and let's put it more in the center. Okay, let's select this view to start playing with materials. So one good habit that you can take is to now create a camera. Now you create a camera, go into camera, you are going to create a camera. So at every time that we lose the original position, we can to the camera settings and clicking on camera, this, and the model come back automatically to the original position. And I think that I like to don't be worried about to move by mistake the model if I lock the camera. So now I can't move it. So I'm gonna start playing with the materials. Okay. I think I'm gonna try to make the camera a little bit like this. Put it here. I'm gonna make me smaller because to try to see as more interface as possible. Okay, like this. So let's start playing with materials. Let's go into the materials. Of course, I have a big collection of my own materials, but because this is one thing that I love to start playing around with materials inside of Keyshot, to start playing with different finishings, with different kind of material. That's the reason why I have a lot of material here. This is and especially when I like to set metallic or metal materials. But just to learn more about the basics, about how to create this kind of finishings, for example, I'm gonna drag and drop this. This one looks strange. Afterward, we are gonna check out why it doesn't work. For example, this one, or maybe one of the latest that I like to use. Just for example, this one is just a more antique gold. Looks like it's completely black. Let's see why or this one. This is very famous. This is the oxidized silver. I'm gonna try to, let's say, let's start from scratch. So let's go to the metals. Let's go to the previous metals. And I'm gonna use as a base metal, I'm gonna use the silver rough, or the silver, no, the silver rough, this one. This is going to be our starting point. Any one of the default Keyshot materials. One very important thing to keep in mind when you think about to start rendering jewelry inside of ZBrush is the surrounding environment, and in this case the geometry that we have on the scene. You can see as the scene, as the backdrop, as the backdrop ramp is blue, we are start getting blue reflection on the model. So double clicking here. So if we change from blue to black, we are gonna start getting this black reflections or red reflections, etc. I like in this case, let's go for a dark scene mood. For example, uh, not 100% black, but maybe a dark gray. Let's stay here. Okay. Very important thing about the back plate, about the backdrop, is the properties. By default, you can see that the material that comes by default with the backdrop ramp is the diffuse. I prefer to use the paint or the plastic. Let's say paint, because here I have more settings to play with. So the roughness, let's make it a little bit darker. And you can see, you can start playing with the reflection. You can see how reflective the material can be. You can see here on the small icon is like a more polished or less polished the surface. Of course, if we are start creating a high polished surface, the material is going to be able to reflect more the lights, and you can see that the color becomes lighter. Now you can see that we are almost has a black color here, but it looks like a light, even like more or less like a light green. This is because we have a very high refractive value here. If we put it a lower value, you can see as lower it is, the material is going to be able to reflect less light, so we're going to get a darker back plate. So let's stay here, and maybe about the roughness, I never set the roughness to 0. As a minimum value, let's say 0.1. 0.1, I think it's good. Okay, so next step to take that I like to take to start to follow setting before I start playing with the material is the environment. Now we have the default environment. If we go to the environment library, here I have many environments. These are HDRI images. You can find many resources on the internet. This is one of that's the reason why maybe I have more than you on your Keyshot, because most of them are downloaded from the net. But now we are gonna start with a custom one to start trying to learn something about the basics, about the how to set an environment lighting. So let's say let's go with the all black. This black as is black is we need to turn on the light. So go into HDRI editor. Let's add a pin, control and left button mouse. Let's left mouse button to let's click here. and now we have a one light here. If we start moving the pin, this is it. You can see that we are creating a pin. It's like putting a pin on a wall. But we are putting a light point to play with. So you can see in this case, I'm gonna select. If you are looking for more dramatic lights like this, I like to use this kind of a scene when we are where we are casting hard lights and hard shadows. A lot of contrast between the light and the shadow. This is one thing that I like to create. But in most of the cases, we need more than one pin. Let's put the pin here, and we can start playing with the pin with the radius and with the brightness. Now let's say the brightness here with the fall off. If we are looking for softer shadows on reflections, maybe in this case, maybe something like this. There we go. So maybe the brightness is too high, or the radius. Let's touch the radius a little bit. So at this point, I am worried about which are the light areas and which are the shadow areas. So the balance between both, depending on the kind of scene that we want to achieve. But in this case, as the model is almost flat, as it is a relief, that's the reason why I try to put the light that hits on the body almost flat. So because if we put it on front like this, yes, you can see I don't like it. So because we have more information about the volumes if we put the light here. So keep in mind that most of the theory, or maybe the theory that I can explain, if we have here the object, I always prefer to put the light here, more or less of 90 degrees from the center. But not very in front of the model, so maybe a little bit on the sides, like this. So here we have one point light here, and let's put another. This is done. So clicking here, Control, and let's put them maybe here. And this one should be smaller. Of course, this is a secondary light. The main line is going to be this one, and this is a secondary light. And to start creating an interesting scene, a good idea is to don't use always the same color for all of the lights. In this case, if I can, let's say now we need to decide if we are looking for a cold or a warm a scene or mood on the scene. So let's say white like this, but not very well, not too bright like this. So let's put a little white tint like this. Okay, yeah, like this. And I'm gonna try to add another light for because so I like this area. This looks like that the line is faded, is almost fade with the background. But if I want more contrast between the model and the background, if I double click here on the material, if I increase the reflective, you can see we are start getting more define the contour, the profile. Yeah, something like this. Let's coming back to the environment. Maybe this. This is too bright. Maybe we can. not 100% white, so a little bit gray, tint of gray like this. Okay, I'm gonna save. Okay, let's go with the materials now. So double clicking here. No, I forgot to click done here. Let's say undo it, done, and now I can double click here to go to the material. Material properties. Here we have a metal with roughness. You can see now you can see how how the roughness works. So this is a very bright surface, as we are looking for more aged surface. Let's say we are reaching 0.1, let's say 0.3. 0.3 maybe is too much, because let's maybe 15, like this. Okay, like this. Like, you have any questions about the process, or you can make it now, or you can leave your comments tomorrow or whenever you watch the video. So okay, so I'm gonna unlock the camera to zoom in a little bit more to be able to see it more, or maybe I'm gonna make it bigger to be able to see better the detail on the surface. Let's make it bigger. Keep in mind that we are making an image, we are making a rendering, so in this moment it's not important the real units. Maybe it's too high. We need to push out a little bit more the model. Like this, a little bit bigger, like this. Let's say here and here. Okay, I'm gonna set the new camera. So let's go to the material now. Now we have by default the material that we have. This is a metal material. We can control set the color, measure it with different. This is silver, platinum. I like to use the default. You can see that here we have more settings. Let's go with the basic one. I prefer to play with this, with the color. Let's put this to white. And let's get into the material graph. This is going to be the important part of the process. Okay, before I start doing this, let's go to textures. Okay, first. So this is the color that we have. The color we can, for example, we can select a color, an image. In this case, here we have some images here. For example, I don't know, maybe this. You can see that we are using this image as a color. We can project any image to the surface. So what I'm not going to use this as a color. The bump, this is very important. I'm gonna use it after, because the bump, what it does, this is, here we have some defaults. Most of the cases I use the default bump images or maps that Keyshot has by default. You can see one that I use most of the time lately. This is this one, the noise texture. No, the noise fractal. I'm sorry, the noise fractal. This one. This is what I do is like when we are starting with a flat surface, adding bump to the surface, we are start getting some we are start pushing this. We are gonna start creating a fake illusion of that that the surface of the model has some imperfections of the surface. You can we can see it here. Again, if I turn this off, you can see everything becomes flat and smooth. If I turn this on, well, I start getting this. So if I increase the bump 8, let's say 0.6, you can see now the differences. It has sense when we are trying to render rock materials and things like this, but I'm gonna use this some very heavy damages metals. This looks very good. So let's say 0.2. You can see now the bump and the opacity. We are gonna use this now. So let's put it here. And instead of start playing with this, I go directly with the material graph. I click in here. You're gonna get this floating window. Let's turn this. Let's close this. This is the material graph editor. Material graph editor. And this is what we get now. I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna double click, right click, delete, right click, delete. This is the material that we are setting. Let's put it here to the right to try to put everything here. Let's try to watch everything at the same time because my screen is not too big. Like this. So we are working with a metal material, and this is the silver rough material. One thing, we are gonna start making things more complex. Let's say I'm gonna right click. I'm gonna add a second material. I'm gonna create a paint material. Now I have two materials, and I'm gonna attach this new material to the original through a label. So clicking here, so you can see you can drag and drop the blue line to label. You can see now. Now we are working with, this is the, if I double click here, if I change, let's say to red, you can see now it's red. And I'm gonna use it more black, like this, with a lot of roughness, because let's say to 1, okay, yeah, something like this. Something like this. And now we have this is the material we are watching is this one. But if we are looking for example, I'm gonna try to create a metal who is reflective on the peaks, on the high parts of the model, and non-reflective or even with a different color on all the recess or deep parts of the model. So for this, I'm gonna need to use an opacity system to try to differentiate the two materials, to start blending the two materials and start watching both materials together on the model. I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna select the one texture. In this case, the texture I'm gonna use the curvature. I don't know how to pronounce curvature or curvature. I don't know. So, and this is I'm gonna touch this to the opacity, and you can see now how the material starts reacting. So now we are watching. I'm gonna change the color to see it better. Let's say put here blue. This is going to be a blue material. Okay. And this one, double clicking here. This is going to be a white, yellow. Yeah, yellowish here, for example. Now you are watching that we are starting from now blending the two materials. And I am using a curvature opacity system. The curvature means that we have, for example, we have something like this. This is the surface. This is where we have here. This is our the peaks, and this is a valley. So the curvature recognize the differences of eighths between the different points of the surface. That's the reason why here you can see here the yellow here, and now on the other parts of the model you can watch the recess, the blue here or the blue here, but we are not going to start blending or balancing the different eighths. So we're going to start, we can do this or we can do this, or start playing with the controls of the curvature texture. So let's go. Double clicking here. This is the different settings. So when we are talking about opacity, the opacity works with white and black. So depending on if the color, in this case, these colors are white or black, the reaction of the opacity is going to be different. So let's say here you have the negative curvature, means the valleys, the positive means the peaks, the highest points, and the zero curvature means more or less in the middle of both values. So let's say, let's put here the black. You can see if I put black here, that means that we are going to be able to see only this material. Or if I go here, you can see now the differences. This is the white, and let's say this is the black. In this case, I think should be the opposite. In this case, this should be black, and this one black, white, black, maybe in the middle, a little bit more. You can see that you can see through both material. We are starting mixing here yellow, and here we have blue, and here we have start mixing both together to start getting a good effect. Maybe let's stay here, and this is white. I think like this is more cool, like this. Let's stay like this. Okay, you're gonna start making this. Okay, perfect. I think. Well, I like to use two different colors to be able to see quickly the differences between when we are setting the different values. Okay, we have been playing with the colors, and now we are going to start playing with the settings. We have two. We have the cutoff and the radius. One advice I recommend to you to that play with these values with this option. Here you have this option here. You turn this on. It's like I don't know how to explain. It's like you are able to see the effect of the different colors, but without the other aspects of the material. For example, the reflections, the shadows, and things like that. In some cases, it's harder to recognize what you are doing. When you turn this button on, you're gonna be able to see what happens when you start playing with these settings. For example, let's put the cutoff from 1 to 10. It's not a good idea. Let's see what happened. Yeah, I like before better. Let's undo it. Let's Control E. I need to set this again, and this is where white, and this is like this. I click and undo, and I have lost the colors I said before. I don't know why, but let's put this to white and let's put this to blue. Let's come back to here. It wasn't as it was before. No, here. And here. No. There. Okay, yeah, more or less. Come here. And now let's put here to 10 to 3. Let's say to 2. If we go to 10, you can see the transition between the peaks and the valleys is softer now. I prefer to get big contrast. It's like the feeling that you have when you have some polished surf parts of the model. Most of the cases are the highest points. This like this. Maybe this should work. Maybe if I go again to 1. Maybe let's say 1. Let's stay in the middle, 1.5. Yeah, I think. Let's save. Hi, Jonatas. How you doing? So, let's stay here, and now, yeah, I think it start looking good. I think. Let's go to set the original. Let's go to black, and this one should be as a silver. We are gonna stay to white. And you can see you start watching a very metallic, let's say the roughness to 1 to get more polished surfaces. But what I see here, maybe it's too blackish. I think it's cool. Okay, you can see how it looks like. But this is now, it looks like it has a kind of patina or something. Maybe we can start working with these values to start watching more white or more silver on the surface. Let's say here 0.2, and maybe this one is too high. Maybe 0.4, and let's put here 2. Yes. And now if we play with the colors again, remember that with the colors now we're playing with opacity. If we go back, we go down to the black, you can see that we'll start seeing more white and less black. If we go to the white, we'll start getting darker surface. Let's say here. And maybe if we want to watch it more, maybe it's too dark. Maybe it's not because the colors of or the opacity or any setting. Maybe we need to come back to the environment. And maybe this pin should be a little bit bigger to start making. You can see now that this is a big difference. The light, like here, and this one. Like there. And now with the let's not so bright. 0.2 maybe is too much. Maybe 15. And here the roughness, I have the roughness to 1. This is the maximum. But I think that's good enough. maybe 0.5. It's more, looks like more metallic than before. Okay, let's stay here. What I miss, the dark areas here. Maybe if I go here, you can see that at any time double clicking on any of the parts of the material graph, you can come back again to the settings. Let's say 1.2. Hmm. With this value, it gives us more information about these parts. You can see that if I click here to 3, for example, everything becomes softer or more blurred. That's the reason why I like the contrasts. So let's say 1.5 like this. Let's try to add another pin light. Where I'm gonna put it here. Let's make it smaller and very bright. Like this. Looks like something, a kind of effect that the lights comes from one side. So let's add one more fall off. And maybe to create a contrast between the light, the warm light here, let's put some blue tint, but soft, like this. And let's create another pin on the opposite part. Here, Control and click. Is this one? If I go here, here, and here, and this one should be not so bright than before. And this should be a little bit higher to create more shadows. Okay. Let's start liking it. So let's come back here. Let's start playing with the dark. No, it should be darker, like this. And this one should be like this, like this. I don't like to. This is too dark, I think. It looks like it is painted instead of getting a realistic material. I think should be more like this. No, this is good with black. Okay, I'm gonna add the reflection here on the back. No, let's add more roughness. Okay, save. So let's start creating more things to start getting more realistic effects on the surface. So this is what we are getting on our material graph. So we have two material. We have paint. I like to blend paint with metal because with the paint you are able to get more contrast between the matte surface and the polished surface. So maybe Gonna go to. This is an endless play. So you're gonna start here playing and playing with the settings all day till getting something that you like, or tomorrow you'll watch the same thing that you were making yesterday, and you decide that you need to start again with a complete new scene. But I'd like to spend here time rendering. I think like this. I think everything looks good. Okay, so let's go to start adding some bump, some because now the surface are completely flat. So going to right click, textures. I like to use this. Let's add the bump to the paint. You can see at first time we don't see that anything is happening. So you select this. I'm gonna put here and click on here. This is how big it is. I think the scale is good enough. Maybe we should change the height. Let's say to 4. No, a little bit more. Let's put 1. And let's scale a little bit bigger. 0.2. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to, you can see that here we have start watching some here on the stomach. You can see that the lights start reacting to the surface. Now the surface is not flat, it has little peaks. Okay, like this. And the same, I'm gonna go into texture, or even better, I'm gonna right click, let's duplicate this. I'm gonna apply the bump to this one as well. But on the polished surface, you can see now it becomes more like a rock because the value is too high in this case. Instead of 1, let's say 0.2. 0.2, 0.1. 0.1, I think it's okay. And one last thing that I like to complete is to start playing with the roughness using the same texture as on the bump. I drag and drop here and I select the roughness. You can see now the difference. I'm gonna zoom in to watch now the difference. Let's leave it here rendering. You can see that some little artifacts start happening here. You can see it here. Now the flat is not completely flat. The surfaces start becoming more realistic because it has more imperfections. But if I remove the roughness, you can see you still are watching the imperfection, but it's not, for at least from my opinion, it's not so realistic than before. So I prefer to leave the roughness, and maybe in this case the scale is very big. Let's put to 1, and the height of the, let's say 0.6 is, and the same here. Let's put here to the roughness. Yep. Like this. I think that everything is start working fine, I think. I'm gonna move it a little bit up here, not that much here. And where's my cameras? This is the camera number 1, the camera number 2. Okay. Let's go the camera. Let's lock the camera. Let's start playing with the lighting environment. If I turn this off, no, doesn't work. If I turn this off, I think I like this effect. Not so bright. Then maybe I should play with the radius. Not like here. With the fall off. Okay, and this, I think this should be this pin, maybe bigger, more in front, like this. Let's play with the background. If I put white, I think you can see that everything changes. I like more the contrast between the dark background. And I think I like this finishing. Maybe we can leave it like this. Maybe the bump, you can see these white dots that start happening here. It's because instead of the material graph, is because the bump that we have here set. Maybe the bump is too high. Maybe instead of 1, let's say 0.6. It was too aggressive, I think. And the roughness, we can play with it. When you are using the roughness here, you are using this image as a roughness map. You can control the white and the black depending on how white or how many white or how many black you apply. You can control the reflection of the surface. Maybe let's put it here to black. As we are controlling now the roughness of the paint of the darkened areas, maybe the effect is not too much, but I think it's good enough. Okay, let's save it. And let's create a fast render where you're gonna watch the effect of the different settings that I was making. Maybe on the screen is you can't recognize differences between, but I'm gonna create a big render. For example, I'm gonna show you. That's the problem. I'm working on a small screen. Let's put it like this to start to grab, and let's say this is going to be a big one. Let's say like this. Let's go to render. You can see here now, you can see the differences. You can see now the effect of the roughness, the effect of the bump. Maybe the roughness is too high, but I like this kind of aged effect or here. You can see now here. I don't like this is too flat. This part is too flat. I like, for example, this part where the light reacts on the surface. Maybe this part. Maybe I need to make the roughness texture a little bit smaller. Okay, now this point is start trying to take decisions about what you don't like on the image. I like this part. This is the different reflection on the surface. Okay, let's maybe I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. This is going to be 0.8. 0.8 like this, and maybe I'm gonna come back here. Maybe I'm looking for more reflected parts because it was maybe too flat. Maybe like this looks more interesting. And one last thing, what I can do is when I can apply I'm gonna create I'm gonna add a texture map. When we talk about texture map, let's talk about any picture. Double clicking here, let's click on this little folder here, and I'm gonna use this image. I'm then gonna apply this image to the negative, to the positive, or to 0, maybe on positive. This is what we are applying. And let's double click here. We can play with the brightness, with the contrast to start getting different results. Let's create a new render of the same area. Well, I'm still having the same problem here. One thing that I don't like this part. Don't like it. Let's say stop, and maybe I'm gonna remove this roughness here. Let's see what happens now. Render again. Now it looks better, I think. this. Yeah, it looks much better. So what I should do is this is maybe the roughness here was too big. This is the roughness, the scale of this, the roughness here are 1, maybe we need to go 0.3 and should work better. And here also the roughness, I'm looking for now more reflective surfaces like this. Not that much. Okay. Again, let's check the lights. Yeah, I like this one, but maybe it's too bright. Yeah, I like this more dramatic lighting. Feel safe. And let's play a little bit with the background. Let's get into the material graph of the background material. I'm gonna add the granite, for example. Let's put it to the roughness, maybe. Let's say how big is this? Maybe it's too big. Remember that you can use this button at any time, so it's much it's easier to see the effect like this. Like this is hard to see what you are doing, but if you turn this on, so you can see here that the texture is too big. Maybe 10, maybe 8, like this. Maybe 10. So you can see now that the is now is not now you're not just making a flat color. You can see you start watching some stains on the surface. Uh, it's more interesting. So the color, maybe we can apply a bump. And maybe now I think that is too big. Maybe 2. Maybe 4. And like this looks much better. Okay, so I'm gonna add more color to this light, maybe not that much. Yeah, like this. Maybe the radius, so just start casting little reflections here. And I'm gonna try to put a pin here, but with less brightness and with less radius. Let's save it. Okay, so I think that for today is gonna be enough because okay, its model requires a specific uh, rendering a scene or specific finishings. So well, I'm gonna be following making different designs. I have in mind what I'm going to do on the next stream is gonna be very interesting, I think. And at the end, as with this one, we are gonna end in Keyshot. We are gonna render, try to render, as we are gonna render a completely different model, a completely different design. Maybe the way of working it could be almost the same or more or less, but the effects are going to be completely different. But keep in mind also that the kind of design that I like is not traditional jewelry. It's always related for more organic designs, more sculptural, more forms or animals or things like this. So the finishing is completely different. But anyway, if you have any suggestions for future streams about rendering to try to replicate an an specific finishing, or if you, for example, you see anywhere a catalog or a picture that you like, or of a ring or for a pendant, we're gonna try to learn how to recreate it inside of Keyshot. Maybe the surface is too, let's say, I'm gonna apply this, as I said before, it is endless. I spend here hours and hours playing with the different settings. So let's get into the material graph again. An item loaded from the internet. I'm gonna show you roughness maps. I'm gonna think in here. I bought it this morning in Artstation. Artstation. This is my Artstation, my library. I bought this morning this pack. This is a 100 roughness imperfection with to try to achieve the different imperfection of the surface, scratches and fingerprints and things like this, that which gives you an extra level to your renderings, to your renders. So, and this is what this is the content. I already got it here open. You can see here the content to start applying different imperfections. Let's see if there is any kind of scratches. Imperfection, they haven't any specific names, so you need to watch the effects here. Let's put here a little bit bigger. Maybe I love this roughness imperfection 11. Imperfections 11. Let's see if I like anything. 100. They are a lot. They are a lot. So let's say maybe the imperfection there is not very specific for jewelry. I like this one, for example. I'm gonna try to apply this kind of imperfection on the surface. This is the number 26. let's say, or even this one, 42. Let's see how this one works. This is the roughness imperfection 42. So if we go to here, right click, textures, texture map, double click here, click it on the folder here, and I think I have here inside of my Keyshot 42. This one. And I'm gonna apply this one to this. Here, roughness. You can see that you start watching the effect on the surface. Maybe it's too big, because when you're rendering objects, you should be thinking about the scale of the object. So we are trying to render jewelry or small objects. The texture should be according to the scale of the object. So if I go here and I click here, you can see this is the size. So double clicking here, maybe if I put 1 centimeter, this is 10, 20, 50, maybe 35, 35. Let's see. The render changed completely, but if we play with the brightness and the color, maybe we can apply, instead of apply to the method, let's leave this as it was before, and let's apply this to here. And let's create a render test. Render. Maybe on the paint you can't watch the effect of the roughness. Yeah, Patty Burgos is saying rendering of gemstones will be interesting to know how to do it. Yeah, I'm agree. The stones are very tricky to render. I'm not a big expert about rendering the stones, because most of the design that I do don't have too many stones. But we can. Okay, but anyway, it's talking about jewelry. I should render, or at least to try to render, or to try to explain how to render a stone. So on future streams we will give it a try, I think, for the stones. But this is a very common question. Okay, it's not affecting anything, the roughness there. So let's put the roughness as it was before, and let's change to this, and we can make it smaller. In this case, I think that it doesn't work very well in this kind of roughness, because for jewelry I think it's not too realistic. Let's put more bump here. surface. And one scratches. One thing that I like to use is this. I'm gonna delete this. Delete textures. There's one texture. This one, the scratches, this comes by default with. Let's apply some scratches on the surface. Well, nothing. Why is happening this? Because maybe it's too big the texture, or maybe it's too small. Maybe we should change the color. This should be white, and this should be black. And now it should work as before. Yes, but I'm gonna make it bigger. Scale. Let's put it 2. Something like this. You have some settings here to play with. More density, more scratches. You can apply some noise to the, let's say, too dense. Let's say 2. Let's say 5. Let's say the size should be bigger. The scale in this case not so big. Maybe the noise like this. You can see now this is a, you can see the effect on the surface. This is very, this is just to show you how it looks like when you are watching tiny scratches on the surface. And you can achieve this kind of finishings with the roughness level. Maybe I can change the angle. I think the scale, levels. Yeah, more something like this. Let's create a quick render to see. You can watch it even mainly here in the shadows. The effect of the roughness. Here you can. It's very easy to watch the here the effect on the roughness because this is too aggressive. I think. It could be a good finishing for a bronze or a big statue, maybe, but with this, I don't know. I think don't work too very well. Maybe if I apply the roughness here to the to see some scratches here and there or some imperfections, it's good. Okay, so what time is it? This 2 hours. The stream, I think, and it's gonna be enough for today. Hope it has been useful for you. For I will post on social media my next stream. I have something in mind, and it's gonna be very interesting. I think very cool. I think that I'm gonna go to the basics of ZBrush, but it's going to be a mix about the basics and more advanced knowledge. And it's a very common and a very famous application of ZBrush for jewelry. So I'm talking about the schools or school rings. So I'm gonna show you how to create a school ring, but it's gonna be a bit different, or maybe a bit maybe funny. You're gonna find it funny on the post because I'm gonna use some existing things that ZBrush already have. to create an skull rings, but maybe not too much people knows that are there. But I'm gonna use them with, like with this and this. I'm going to create an skull ring, so it's gonna be very easy to create for everyone. So and then I'm gonna try to create my own skull ring, so with the kind of details that I think at the moment, but well, I'm going to cover the basic about how to create a skull ring with different elements, to start making Boolean between the different elements, how create surface detail, and some sculpting process that we made here on the lion. And I think it's going to be interesting in terms of it's going to be different. I think. Let's see. What do you think? And okay, I'm gonna use this as the final model for render. So don't forget to subscribe if you like the stream or would you like to see my future streams. Click on the bell to subscribe, and I'm gonna try to create one live all each week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the week, more or less. Uh, Next week, let's see if I have time due to my current works, because now I have a lot of work to do. But then I'm gonna try to create to make the next stream on the next week. So thank you all for being here watching me and find my content interesting. And see you on future streams. Bye bye.